All right. Well, we're rolling.
Cool.
Kenan, thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. Can you tell me about your business or businesses, what you do and everything you got going on?
For sure. So, basically about 3 years ago, started my own small business called Provecho. And we do like rustic Mexican food. Um, I came from my most recent job before this was working for Blackbird Kitchen,
Okay.
in Bozeman. And I was head chef there for a lot of years. And it was it's just a really awesome place to work. And it was my first experience working in a place where, you knew the ranchers who were bringing in the meat and you're working with local farms like more directly and that type of thing. Coming from back east and from other places that I've worked in the industry, that just is not as, it's harder to do. And there's also, in those places, sometimes like less interest in that. Um, and so that is also kind of part of the driving force of like wanting to have a restaurant where I'm able to use as much local stuff as possible. Um, and so that's it. It's like scratch made Mexican food using as much local ingredients as I'm able to pull off.
You get some good street cred if you were a Blackbird for a while because they're,
Yeah.
very, very popular and everyone
Mhm.
speaks very highly of them. So
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, totally. It was a great opportunity. I actually just did like a little guest stint there in my off season this year. So, you know, the still kind of moving in and out of that world sometimes,
Yeah.
which is good. I mean, it's definitely nice to be able to move on from something and recognize it as a good opportunity and be able to like continue to pursue my own thing, but feel like I didn't like burn any bridges or anything like that.
Yeah. It's nice when that's how things end or go and they're not some dramatic
Yeah.
ending.
Yeah.
You said back east. Where were you before you were out this way?
So I'm from Pennsylvania
Okay.
originally. Philadelphia area.
Yep.
It's like 45 minutes north of there. So I don't actually claim Philadelphia, but you know how it is. If people want to know where you're from, you use kind of the closest major
Yeah.
landmark. So that's where I'm from. And I worked in a bunch of restaurants back there. And then, eventually, had a short stint in DC, worked in a couple places there and then Denver. But yeah, so when I say back east, mostly DC and Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah, I'm from upstate New York, and it's kind of similar. You got to pick the biggest city, so anyone has an idea where
Yeah.
what that's near.
So what, like Syracuse or
Sari, like Albany,
Okay.
Albany or
Mhm.
Poughkeepsie would be the closest cities.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Blackbird is Italian. What is the food that you're doing? You're not doing Italian food now.
No, I'm not doing Italian food. I my my most fond food memories are mostly of taco nights, growing up and whatnot, but also we had there was a large Latino population near where I grew up, or where I grew up, and not as much of a like a Mexican population. It was more people from Puerto Rico, and Haiti and places like that, but mostly Puerto Rico. And so all those ingredients and all those smells and, you know, classmates sharing food that their parents had made for them and whatnot. I just fell in love with all those flavors. And it's just, kind of one of the things that I got really interested in when I started cooking, which was pretty young. I started helping my mom cook, dinners for the family and all that. But when we'd go shopping, all of those like Latin American ingredients, plantains and achiote and stuff like that, that's kind of what got me more curious about, looking into cooking more. So
I thought I saw some stuff that looked like tamales on your.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we do tamales and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm operating a food truck mostly right now, and so keeping the menu as simple as possible is paramount. And so we pretty much just do like a few varieties of tacos off the truck. Sometimes we'll do some tamales or other things like that, but you have to keep it a little bit more. At least I have to keep it a little bit more limited in order
Yeah, yeah.
to stay on top of everything.
Where is the food truck? Is it always in one spot or is it moving around?
It's moving around. We mostly do like we do catering, we do pop-ups. But for the truck itself, we will do like farmers markets. We'll be at Music on Main, the Emerson's Art Walk situation, second Friday of the month through the summer, things like that. Doing some stuff for Tinworks. Part of that is because the way that the truck is set up, probably partly just from having worked in restaurants forever, we have kind of um, like distinct stations, and for it to run as smooth as possible, it's better for us to hit like a certain level of busyness. So we're not all kind of scrambling around, and we keep the flow smooth. And so, and also because so much of it is done from scratch, like the tortillas are being made not to order, but sort of just before order in order to keep them like nice and fresh, but allow them to steam out and get soft and pliable. Um, and so in order to do that and to like always have the griddles on and to have everything like set up and ready to go, it kind of needs to be like, okay, this is go time. We're going to work for 3 to 5 hours. And then basically we can all stop at once and like focus on cleaning up and whatnot. It's good in some ways. It's extremely efficient when we're busy, but it kind of sucks when we're not busy. And so I haven't really pursued like setting up on the street and just like having it be like people kind of come when they come. And yeah.
Yeah, because I think of those, there's that little food truck, I don't know what you call it, on 7th there.
Yeah. Food truck, food court.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of cool that you guys, like, you need a flow, but it does make sense because then it's kind of like starting up, stopping, and it sounds like it's more of a process to start up and stop and slows things down. Hi, folks. Quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, consider following the show. Whether you're using our services directly or following and sharing the show, those simple actions help support this business as well as the businesses and guests that have been a part of the show. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses, local jobs, and this beautiful state. Now back to the show.
I think when I first had the opportunity to get the truck, I thought that we were going to end up doing that, just like setting up somewhere, and that would always be our spot. And it's funny the flow of opportunities and everything, and the way that the truck got set up and the kind of food that we're doing, everything just sort of like worked together to put us into the zone that we're operating in now. And yeah, who knows? I mean, it could have been very different. We didn't know how busy we were going to be the first partial year because it takes so long to get everybody to sign off on everything and get all the applications in, go through the approval process for the fire department, the health department, the city, the state, all of those various aspects of it. And so I got kind of a later start the first year than I was planning to. And we ended up just basically in that sort of limbo. I ended up taking a bunch of catering jobs, and then it kind of didn't make sense to commit to one spot. And so after that first year, that's just kind of the way things flowed. And then everything else just sort of like fed into that paradigm. And, there's always ways to change the paradigm, but the way we're set up right now, that's what's working best for us.
I find the food truck concept kind of intriguing as a business owner because you look at, and if you're coming from Blackbird or restaurants, there's so much overhead. And it seems like such a smart way to, get your feet off the ground and get going. And it sounds like there's still a lot of similarities in the paperwork and everything you need to do from a health and state perspective. But was that have you enjoyed this experience? Does it have its own challenges? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was adamant that I did not want a food truck. I wanted a brick and mortar. I wanted my dream to come true. And I was like, that's just what's going to happen.
mhm.
And, um, a woman from Bozeman had been operating a small, like a vegan food truck. And it was sort of like I don't know. It was an idea that she'd had that kind of didn't work out in the way that she had hoped, partly because, I mean, it's just so hard to find staffing and all of the minutia of it. It wasn't really something, it wasn't really like her dream to do it in that way. And so she asked if I would be interested in buying the truck from her. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stay the course and just keep doing pop-ups and try and make this brick and mortar happen. And then after several months of working on that and being like, well, I still need to make income in the meantime, you know, the bills don't stop. I called her up and asked if the offer was still on the table, and she said, yeah. Um, and so we figured all the details out about that. But I was like, man, you know, I'm not old by any means, but I'm getting past the point where I'm as okay with like being, you know, hunched over, cramped in a food truck, and it's like super cold when it's cold and it's super hot when it's hot. And I'd kind of psyched myself out of even wanting to do it. And then, in the process of doing it for the first like half year and then the next full year, I've really been enjoying it. It's definitely got a lot of challenges. In a lot of ways, there's, yeah, less overhead than a brick and mortar space. In some ways, like fire department inspections and whatnot, they are actually more expensive and more in-depth inspections than for a lot of brick and mortars, it seems like. Um, which probably makes sense because you're driving propane and whatnot around the city and setting up wherever. And so I can understand where that comes from, but there are ways in which it can be actually like almost more complicated than brick and mortar in just certain specific ways. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty fun business to run. It feels good to have like our own little pirate ship to tool around the city with and serve food wherever we're able to.
So now when you do a pop up, you've got this truck, and that is that what you pretty much take anywhere?
Um, yeah, we're still occasionally doing things, and mostly this has been with Izakaya Three Fish, but also with Little Star Diner and, you know, some other situations like that where we will do like a restaurant, like on a day that they're closed, we'll come in and
Oh, nice. I got you.
bring all of our equipment and food and whatnot, all of our staff, and just open up like a 1 or 2 day restaurant in their restaurant.
I got you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's been great I mean, it's a relatively small town, and you know, within that small town, the industry folk population is relatively small, and people have been really kind and generous with their time and with their spaces and things like that, and like trying to help me get something off the ground.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's a good community to be a part of.
it is. Yeah.
If you've
Yeah.
been around a while and have a decent reputation, most people are
Mhm.
pretty apt to help out.
Yeah, and that's definitely a situation where Blackbird helped.
Yeah.
It's even just, you know, resume wise, that's one thing, but it's such an open kitchen, and if you've been there for 10 years or more, like I was, um, it's just, there's a lot of like, it's easy for people on the street to be like, oh, I had a good dinner there the other night. I
Yeah.
saw you in there. So yeah,
Very cool.
yeah, it's helpful.
So you had worked, and then why'd you decide to go out on your own? Was that was the long time dream to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had wanted since I was little to be either a chef or an English professor, and chef went out. So yeah, and in that, um, I mean, I think for most people, if you've always wanted to be a chef, that there's like some Venn diagram of you want to have a restaurant. Not that that has to be how that plays out, but if you want more autonomy to like execute your vision, then you need to have more ownership over the situation. So, Blackbird was a great experience for a lot of years. But eventually I just needed to like step out and do my own thing. I really enjoyed aspects of like cooking Italian food and learning about Italian food. I didn't have much of a knowledge base in that when I started there. And like just nerding out on all the noodle making, and like the weird hyper regional, like, oh, this is how you make this one specific pasta that they only make in this mountain town, and the next mountain town over they make maybe some different version and they insist these guys' version is wrong and theirs is right. And I don't know, it was a lot of fun. But it's not kind of where my passion lies. And most of my travels have been in Latin America and in Mexico especially, um, partly just because it's less expensive to go. And if you have um, like I have a slow conversational grasp of Spanish. And so, if you're going to go to Southeast Asia or something, then you have like new languages to learn. And,
Mhm.
so it was just comfortable to continue traveling and learning in Latin America. And I love the food so much. So that was what I chose.
So your food, I mean, how do you categorize what your food is specifically?
Yeah.
And you don't have to if there's not a.
No, if I think that's pretty easy with caveats. So like in Mexico, there's like there's a saying sin país or sin maíz no hay país, which is without corn there's no country. Like corn is the centerpiece of all of the cuisine. Just like, you know, in French or Italian, it's wheat and it's like the bread and the noodles and all that type of thing. That is corn in pretty much all of Latin America and especially in Mexico. Like there's creation myths there that like the gods created the first humans from corn dough,
Oh,
basically.
interesting.
Um, like making like human shaped tamales, and that was like the first successful people. So it's super important down there. And I've always found, and this was, well, all right, I've always found that to be like sometimes disappointing when you go to a place that is making really awesome tacos, really awesome whatever Mexican food, but then you can see the tortillas are just like the mass market ones,
Like,
which makes sense. It's a
mhm.
lot of work to make your own tortillas. Like we're getting corn and milling it, nixtamalizing it and milling it and making all that stuff from scratch. And it is not easy. And it's also not cheap. Um, but to me, that's kind of like what makes it really fun is you're starting with like this thing that's so important to the culture and the cuisine and then working out from there. And so, in the same way that if you went to a really nice French restaurant, and all the bread was like frozen bread from Cisco, or an Italian place that was otherwise really nice, but all the pasta was just from a box or something like that. I think that limits what your expression of the cuisine. And so we wanted to like start from the basis and work up from there. And, sometimes people will describe what we do for me by saying like it's authentic Mexican food. I don't claim that. I've spent a lot of time in Mexico. I love the cuisine and I love the culture. I'm not Mexican. I'm not there. I just think it's a fool's errand for me to claim that. So what I say is that, um, for me, Provecho is about, like I said, sort of starting from the base point, from the cornerstone of the cuisine, the corn, and building up from there. And it's kind of like my homage to food and culture that I love. Um, and the other sort of like caveat is that we live in Montana. And so especially if you're trying to get a lot of stuff locally, you're just not, there's no local plantains, no local pineapples, no local limes, all that kind of thing. And so there's going to be influence of like where we live and the ingredients that are available to us. And I think that partially dictates what we do. I don't really think of it as a limitation. I think of it as like us shaping this thing that we're doing an homage to, but like adding in the local terroir, basically. So, hopefully it becomes sort of a harmonious like marriage of all those things.
I love it because I don't even know if it's a good thing, but I always say I'm a purist.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, it's a lot more work and it's a lot more expensive being a purist.
Yeah.
But I respect it so much when I see it in what somebody else does. And it's not, I get that there's a lot of confines, especially in Montana,
Mm-hmm.
just like you said with the resources. But when people do that extra, go that extra mile to somehow honor or,
Mm-hmm.
in the best way they can, I think that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm really proud of like what we're working towards is like trying to be craftspeople. What I'm working towards. I speak of Provecho in like a royal we. And I definitely have we have an awesome team. We have some really good people. And this is also like a vision that I started and I'm like pouring myself into. And so like all those aspects of like the learning curve of, the corn that you're using and how you're milling it and everything is, the part that probably keeps me most interested in it, is like basically trying to be a craftsperson and like learning all the ins and outs and all the nuances of, a limited scope of things and just trying to get as good as we can with it.
And do you think? I mean, I haven't had any of your food, but I'm already intrigued, and I know my fiance will want to try this already.
Yeah.
She's like, anytime Mexican food gets on the date night list, she's all about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
but someone said this recently, and I'm probably going to butcher it or paraphrase, but they said, like sometimes like if you make a product or sell something, the consciousness that you put into the thing you're making is what you're selling.
Mm-hmm.
And as when you kind of say, it's an art or creation, I'd imagine that's got to show up in the way it tastes and the way it's. I think it's something that's felt when kind of like you said, if you've just grabbed some tortillas from Cisco,
Mm-hmm.
or you've put time into milling corn to make these.
Yeah.
I think it's got to show up in the quality and the experience.
I think so too. I mean, I think that's, true of any craft or, creative. I mean, pretty much anything that you do, there's going to be those elements. But yeah, I think that like our personality and our values and everything shines through in the food. And I think people really pick up on that. And like you said, it's a good community. I think obviously the Gallatin Valley has been growing in population and whatnot. And, is in a lot of ways more diverse than when I first moved here in a good way. I love all that. I think that the relatively small community feeling is still here, and it seems like people respond well to like people who care about the community and are trying to like like I said, we're trying to support other growers and craftspeople as much as possible and pass that on to the people who come to the truck, come to the pop-ups and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then you could really, even go as far as to where you're getting the corn from, where you're getting these ingredients from, and then, hoping and assuming that those people are doing the same thing into their product.
Mm-hmm.
Like what a great end product you could be giving to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even in situations like with the corn, we get some corn from Montana. the majority of it comes from Mexico. And that's definitely a situation where you can't like know the farmers or whatever, but we're working with companies that do a good job of like finding small farmers and finding small co-ops to support, and then doing things like they only buy excess. So like after a community grows the corn for the season and determines like what they're going to need to get through to the next growing season and all that, then they basically offer the surplus to the distributors that we go through.
Okay.
And so hopefully we're not like supplanting or damaging their local agriculture ecosystem.
I got you. There's some intention behind it.
Yeah.
What's the process of making these corn tortillas? Is that, am I saying that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we get various types of corn. I mean, there's so many different types that are different types that are grown, and a large percentage of those are at least decent for like making tortillas and stuff. And so we've been like working through figuring out which ones are our favorites, and we'll get those. Like I said, we get some from Mexico and some from northern Montana, and then we nixtamalize it, which is cooking it in an alkaline solution. And so you take it has to be like the harder types of corn. You can do it even with popcorn, but it's better to do it with like dent corn or even field corn or flour corn. So you get these hard types of corn, and you cook them in water with, usually it's either like pickling lime, or you can use like hardwood ash. Any kind of alkali will do it. And obviously some of those are food safe and some of those aren't. So what we use is pickling lime. It basically reacts with the outer surface of the corn, with the skin on the outside, and it turns it like bright yellow. Even like blue corn, you'll see in the white parts of the blue corn, it turns bright yellow almost immediately as soon as you add the alkali, and then cook that for a while, like 45 minutes or something like that, depending on the corn, and then let it sit overnight. And it turns the outside skin of the corn into like gel, basically, and also like changes the nutritional content of the corn. So you can basically absorb a little bit more amino acids, get more protein, and then it frees up the niacin in the corn. And then after that, you drain off the liquid, and we run it through. It's an electric mill with basalt, like volcanic stones. And so there's only so much you can put through. I have a relatively small mill with like 5-inch stones. But generally, even for a small machine, they're generally more like 7 inches, and you'll get ones that are like the size of this table, like, 6 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet or something like that, like really big, machines, but ours pretty small. So you just run it through these stone millstones, basically. It grinds it up, gets it to sort of mix the gooey outer pericarp in with all the rest of it, and it forms the dough. And then all we do is add a little bit of salt and a little bit of water if it's not wet enough, and that's it. Just press tortillas or make it into tamales, however you want to wield it.
Where do you have all this set up?
So we have, our commissary is Fork and Spoon Kitchen, and then there's like, we've done stuff with Roly Poly in the past, or like I said, in Izakaya's kitchen and whatnot.
Okay.
But yeah, that's one of the things that that's one of the things that would make a brick and mortar so nice, is to have everything centralized.
Yeah, I could see where this.
Yeah, have a place to go.
And you said, is it a mill? Is that what you call it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have that, or that's at Fork and Spoon?
Mm-hmm.
That's yours. Mm-hmm. Then you bring it.
It's like, trying to think of what to compare it to size wise. It's probably volume wise about as big as like a dorm fridge.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's way more dense, but it's not too bulky.
And these are just like corn kernels is what you're starting with.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in my farming life, like 15 years ago, we'd feed shell corn to the cows and we'd put it through a mill.
Okay.
And it would grind it up because otherwise a lot of the corn would just go right through them and they don't get the nutrients. So that's this mill. There's a couple different types. There's dried shell corn, or there's high moisture, which was more like fermented almost.
Oh, okay.
Because it would be harvested at high moisture and then put in a silo, fermented. But that's all I'm thinking in my head when I'm thinking of the mill. But it was a little mill that we'd mix it and but same idea. But yeah, that otherwise those corn kernels are so hard it doesn't even it would just go right through them.
Totally. That's so probably like a dry mill.
Yeah, dry mill. Yeah.
That's like most of the grain mills out there are like dry mills.
Yeah.
And so it's a little harder to find something that you can put, because this mixture, you're just like constantly putting water in while it's grinding, trying to keep the stones cool. Otherwise they'll like grind against each other so hard that it essentially turns like the surface to glass, like it melts the basalt.
Oh, interesting.
And like gets really, I don't know if it melts it per se. I don't know. I'm throwing words around, but it turns like glassy and smooth and does not work for milling anymore.
Yeah. There was like corn. It was basically like corn dust, like powder everywhere because it was dry.
Yeah.
So it's just
yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Okay. So you get the tortillas. Where are you going from here? What are the primary meats you're using?
We get a lot of ingredients from Western Montana Growers Co-op. And we also get some meats from Black Dog Farm over in Livingston, and sometimes Gallatin Valley Botanicals has a little bit. We used to get stuff from Amalthea, but they stopped doing the pig program there. And so, man, that whole landscape has changed so much since COVID. And probably even before that, it was like most of the ranchers that we were getting stuff from kind of started to retire all at once. And so finding new sources has been tough because there's not like a ton of kids getting into ranching and farming. So that's, I don't know.
Yeah. Tim and Kira at Black Dog, they're probably like some of the younger ones out there.
Yeah.
I actually know them because when I was moving back out here, I was like looking for a place to live and they had a tiny home on Airbnb.
Yeah.
And I got to know them. I stayed there for like 6 weeks and Tim's still on the list to come do a podcast, but I know he's busy and I don't know if they've got at least one kid. I don't know if they've had another one since.
I think they might have. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But they're great. They
are. And yeah, it would be nice if there were, there's like Josh Chance doing Chance Farms, and there's definitely some people doing that type of thing, but more vegetable farming it seems than like animal farming and ranching. I don't know, maybe that's just being closer to Bozeman where the real estate is such that it's easier to start a vegetable farm than have grazing animals.
Where I grew up in upstate New York, like taxes start to creep up. We were, we're outside the city, but like the cost of the city starts to push in. Yeah. And it's very similar to Bozeman. To use any of this real estate for farmland, you really can't justify it.
Yeah.
Your taxes are that high. If you can have an apartment building, it's going to cover your costs, your taxes a lot better than a garden.
No, totally. Yeah. More density of people brings. Yeah, that's kind of where I grew up too. It's funny. I feel like there's sort of like, it's so easy to be like, oh my God, this is like what's happening where I live. It's gotten so bad with building condos on farmland and everything. And it has, and it's definitely happened where I grew up too. Whenever I go back to the Lehigh Valley back in Pennsylvania, it used to be that between like it's Lehigh Valley, so there's Allentown, then Bethlehem, then Easton, 3 like smallish cities, medium cities along this river valley. And it used to be that in between them there would be like 25-minute drive, half-hour drive, 45-minute drive through like farmland. And now it's like, condos. And so I feel like wherever you go, that's probably the reality.
Yeah, where I grew up, my family's farm is a dairy farm, and they said around the 70s, the county I grew up in had over 400 dairy farms, and I think there's 10 active right now.
Yeah, wow.
So some of them have consolidated and become one very big farm, but a lot of buildings gone up. A lot of it, more of it's become horse property. But when I moved out here, I was like, oh, this, like, it wasn't just me. Like, this happens everywhere in America.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, if population growth is going to be a thing, then density is. I mean, I don't know much about city planning or any of that type of thing, but they always talk about having more density instead of more sprawl is a good thing, and managing the ways that the population is growing. But it's just it seems like if you grew up with a lot of farmland around, at some point you're going to be like, it's mostly all gone now.
Yeah.
You're at some point you're going to tell your kids that used to be a barn and that used to be.
Yeah. I remember when this was all fields.
Yeah, for sure.
And if that is what you want to, there are places where there's like a tiny town and nothing but farmland forever. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, I think that you might be playing a little bit of a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
If you move to Red Lodge and then Red Lodge starts growing or whatever, but there are definitely spots out there.
And I know we got a little sidetracked, but to the meat, is there specific kinds of meat you're using or not using? Is beef?
We use
beef, pork, chicken.
We use beef, pork, chicken, turkey. Turkey is one that we don't use as much because there's not people growing turkey around here. I mean, Gallatin Valley Botanicals sometimes does that. But that's like, so I really love the food from the Yucatan. And on the Yucatan Peninsula, there's like these sort of smaller indigenous turkeys, and they're a huge part of the cooking down there. And so that's kind of like a more challenging meat to use, dryness wise and everything, but there's some really, really awesome recipes that I've loved making. So we do that more for like special occasion pop-ups and things like that. We use some lamb. We've used goat, but it's hard to get. We used to get it from Farm 51, which is like over Kelly Canyon way.
Okay.
And unfortunately, they no longer grow lamb or grow goat for commercial meat use.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. That's right. It was a little bit of like a, not hobby, but side project for them. And kind of outgrew it. And so unfortunately, there's not as much of that available to us, but yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else. We don't really do fish very much. I don't think we've ever done fish, actually. There's plenty of things that are still on the table that we haven't gotten to yet, but we're only 2.5 years old. So
how about a lot of your ingredients where you can get really creative with taste and everything? Where does that stuff come from?
You mean like
spices and seasonings and
yeah. I mean, I don't know that basically we're at like an awkward size where we don't have a lot of like access to a lot of like larger distributors. And in a lot of ways that's great. But trying to not have everything come from Amazon or whatever is like always a little bit of a struggle. We go through Toluca Foods for a lot of like chilies and Mexican spices. We go through the Calustians, the spice shop in New York City is one of the few places that we're able to get like rare chilies from Oaxaca and that type of thing. And then we get corn and chocolate and beans um, from Tamoa and Hacienda, which are like larger kind of distributors of Mexican ingredients. And um, we've also gotten some things from them like chicatana ants and various some insects and stuff like that. But honestly, I think that both from the standpoint of like sometimes those more exotic things are hard to get or they're hard to get. Like our tacos are $6 a piece, and it's like as much local and organic stuff as we can, and then almost everything is made from scratch. We don't make cheese from scratch, a couple things like that. But I think that when I was at various points through my culinary career, and even a little bit at Blackbird, there is sort of like looking for novelty, like just trying to find ways to make it more exciting and more interesting and learn new things about new ingredients. And so definitely done a lot of that type of thing of like trying to find, um, myrtle berries for Blackbird, from Sardinia, and, different things like that. And there's, to me, there's kind of two main drawbacks of that. And one is that oftentimes those more exotic things, you're not getting the best version of anyway. You might get a good dried version if there's a dried version, but if you want to do something with like breadfruit and Bozeman, you're going to have a hard time finding good breadfruit, no matter how much you pay. And so I think that we've been focusing on finding the best things that we can find and then just like making as consistently good a product out of it as possible. And then the other main drawback is of that for me right now with Provecho is like I feel like I'm at the beginning of the journey of like learning how to make this type of food and understanding like the cultural significance of what I'm doing, both to like make sure I'm not stepping on toes or being insensitive or whatever, but also just like so I know how it all connects so I can like do a better job of decision making on like what's going to be, maybe an appropriate substitute of Montana ingredients because it still fits the spirit of this or whatever. So I feel like I'm learning the rules of what I'm doing before I break the rules of what I'm doing.
Probably smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, in the interest of all that, kind of keeping things as simple as possible, I feel like we have not really been seeking out like the most exotic ingredients possible, but just like the best, most consistent things that we can bring in and cook or translate to our customers.
Yeah, there's that tipping point too, and I see that as a business owner. You can like try to be really exotic and go crazy, and then there's a price point too.
Yeah,
and you got to somehow find that middle ground to have something quality and consistent and not be. Like I wish I never got anything from Amazon and like it all came from here, but there's things that like I always say within reason. So I like I do consciously work to use products and support local businesses, but some things within reason I can't afford to spend 5 times as much and drive around to get stuff, etc. And I don't know, it's almost scary how efficient Amazon is sometimes.
Yeah,
because it's on the doorstep the next day.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about all of that kind of swirl around. I don't know that I feel like, yeah, it's not something that I'm like, excited to go into a tangent about necessarily with people because it's so fraught that it's just like hard to know even what the right path is.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it'll almost feel like, oh, I got something I got like spindrifts from Walmart instead of Amazon. And that feels like almost supporting the little guy comparatively, which is obviously objectively not true.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You could. I've done this same thing, and when I get spindrift, funny enough, I get them from Costco,
Mm-hmm.
and for years I was like, I'm not going to Costco. I'm not like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to like, I don't want to contribute to that machine. But you could also argue how many local people have jobs there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not like,
yeah. And they seem to be relatively good employers, which
Yeah.
is a plus.
and the spindrifts are like a third of the price they are everywhere else. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Totally. It's you know the show The Good Place?
No.
It was a sitcom with like Ted Danson and the premise of the show, um, without too many spoilers, is that it was a group of people who had passed away who were living in a neighborhood, and they were told that they were in the afterlife, and whatever shenanigans ensue. At some point in one of the seasons, one of the later seasons, they have this whole conversation about like how hard it is to get into the quote unquote good place because like every decision is so fraught. Like if you buy a tomato, are you supporting like someone who's not paying their farm workers to pick the tomato? Like every single modern day decision is so fraught that it's hard to know that you have some sort of like quote unquote moral high ground. And I just thought I think about that sometimes because I mean I hung out with a ton of punk rockers. I was a punk rocker. I had Mohawk. We were all going to like political punk shows and like boycotting the Gap and boycotting whatever else. And um, all of that, I think, feels a little bit more confusing. Like there are some clear, like, okay, maybe it would be good to boycott these people. But then the more you know about issues and um, the more you know about the subject, the sometimes harder it is to know who to blame or who to boycott or who to like you're just trying to make the best decisions that you can while still living a reasonable life and
staying sane.
yeah, so all that to say, I still get things from Amazon. We try not to get everything from Amazon. Who knows what the right choice is sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. And like the answer is obviously not to do nothing, but I get there with politics all the time because it's such a large, there's so many downstream effects to everything that you can't just like, it's not black and white. It's not like, there's negatives and positives all around. So I'd like, it can be a little bit disheartening to even get too far into it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I think I absorb more political news than some, less than plenty of others. But yeah, it gets to be quite a whirlwind of confusing thoughts.
Do you want to talk about your punk rocker musical days at all, or no?
Sure.
What was it? Where's that journey? Where did it start? And
it started with me being a relatively nerdy kid, and having like my dad was essentially like a preacher, um, in a religion, and so I was like kind of sheltered, kind of weird, nerdy kid, and around like middle school, a group of kids kind of found that endearing and took me under their wing, and they ended up being like, I mean, it was like grunge times basically, and when I moved out of my parents' house, we all these kids moved in together, and that was kind of like the scene that we were a part of. Just got to be like, going to shows in Philly, going to shows in New York City, and it's like a nice thing about growing up where I grew up is like being not in the big city but close enough to go hang out and do stuff like that. But yeah, it's just like speaking of community, it was a good, like, close knit community of people, and we all looked out for each other. So
And you play some musical instruments?
I did a little bit, but I was never in any bands. Like it was I was in some like fun band type thing, but nothing that ever played out and about. So my enjoyment of the music was just going to shows and going to protests and all that kind of stuff.
It's funny that you like. I think I teased my fiance because I think she embraced that grunge era a little bit more than I did.
Yeah.
But we're talking about picking our wedding song,
Hmm.
and I was like, man, some songs are timeless, and then some I look back and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I listened to that. So I'm
Hmm.
trying to think about that as we decide what our wedding song is. Like what's really timeless.
Yeah.
But you change. So
Yeah.
I
Totally.
I don't knock myself from 5 or 10 years ago. I know that was just a different version of myself, but
Yeah. Yeah. I think, man, yeah, there's so much that I'll think of like some band or some song I used to love and go put it on and be like, no longer for me.
yeah.
But there's still some standbys from that era. And it's sort of like on a spectrum of like, this is for me in my alone time versus like I'll put this on with my coworkers and stuff. Just yeah, that's fine
Yeah,
though.
some is like I listen to some stuff. I'm like, it's so bad. And I like primarily I grew up on a farm. We like basically it was just country all the time, but
Hmm.
there was just like punk rock stuff and some of it I'm like, that's still pretty good. And some of it I'm like,
Hmm.
that's really bad.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
This guy I used to work with called some of it he'd say, stop listening to that I want to kill my parents music.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like, okay,
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
yeah,
But
totally.
it's just funny.
Yeah, or the sad bastard music.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely some of it's more appropriate to adolescent phase of life or yeah, is just really dated in general. But
Yeah. And like some people could say a lot of that's like country from the end of time is like
oh yeah,
complaining about hard times.
yeah,
Um, which I think there's some truth in that too.
I think there is too. I mean, it's like a perpetual thing that teenagers feel disillusioned in everything else. All their decisions are still being made by their parents, and yeah, I think it makes sense that that's like a almost universal phase of life for people.
So what year was it when you first came to Bozeman?
Oh man, I want to say 2006. Is that right? I want to say 2006 originally, and I lived here for 2 or 3 years, and then moved away. Um, but I loved it here. I wasn't really ready to leave. Um, I had met someone, and she was sort of at the end of her. She was ready to be done with living in such a small place. She's from like the Washington D.C. area,
Okay.
and so we kind of moved along, and then eventually, a few years later, I made my way back. Um, yeah, it was not. It was not certain. I was like still moving around a bunch at that point in my life, and I was like, well, I've already lived in Bozeman. Maybe I'll go someplace else. Like, I went to Denver for a bit. When I went back out west, I thought about like Wrangell Island in Alaska, um, and but this was like that would have been 2009 ish. And so it was still really bad economically it seemed like a bad idea to move to a small town where I didn't know anyone with not a lot of like resources or backup and try to make it work. So I felt like Bozeman was the safer choice. And I've, yeah, it's been really good being back. It's also been really nice that Montana and Bozeman specifically has been growing a little bit. I know that that's sort of like um, probably a naughty thing to say in some ways, but
How could you?
I know. I mean, I want responsible growth, everyone. But at the same time, like it's nice to have more music coming through. It's nice. That's always one of the nice things about like it being a college town is you get a little bit more kind of culture moving through and diversity and things like that. Like, um, I like the food scene here is better than it could be for a town the size of, Belgrade and Bozeman and whatnot. Just I think because of some of that growth and diversity. So it's like there's good and bad aspects of it, and I'm happy for the increase in like diversity and the increase in things to do. Um, more places for kids to go and hang out and blow off steam. I don't know.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to say that because I grew up in a very small town. And if you're in a small town that is depressed and it's declining, and there's like you said, things for kids to do, like it's basically drugs and alcohol in a lot of small towns.
Yeah.
And there's not better education options, and there's not exposure to like, oh wow, I could do that with my life. And there's so much possibility here.
Totally.
With the campus and everything. And
totally. And I think it's like, it's a good mix too, because of the sort of like, well, I don't know, bootstrappy nature and get up and go nature of Montana. And because where I'm from is not that small. Like I think Bethlehem, Pennsylvania's metro area when I left was probably around like 1 million people. Bethlehem city limits itself was smaller than that, but you get the surrounding towns and whatnot. All that to say, like, more things to do, more places for kids to go and whatnot. But I always felt a little bit like, I always felt a little bit like, sometimes it felt like when people hit 30, they sort of like were done. And they were just like,
gave up.
Yeah, like I got my sweatpants. I'm going to wait for the bus. And, I know that that's not really universally true, but that was like growing up as I was like in my late teens, early 20s. I don't know. I had this feeling as I was taking the bus out to, whatever, like industrial parks for temp jobs and stuff like that. It just felt kind of depressing in a way. And when I ended up here, because I basically left Bethlehem in my early 20s and just started wandering around the country. And for months and months was just like on a bike, hitchhiking, whatever, like, and I landed here in Bozeman because I wanted to bicycle Yellowstone, and ended up at the hostel and kind of like worked in exchange for a bunk for a while. And I was doing temp jobs and like landscaping stuff. And there was like an older couple in sort of the border between Belgrade and Spring Hill, out that way. And they had like a little landscaping company. I was working for them, and they were in their like, was it like late 60s, early 70s? And they were so vibrant. They were just like out and about all the time. And you see all these like old guys and gals tossing bales of hay. And I loved that. It really resonated with me that like, that's like a different type of vibrancy. You've got the vibrancy of like diversity and some nightlife and some things to do, but you also have just like people who are really excited to be here and be doing whatever it is that they're doing. And I think that was like really inspirational when I first moved out here. So
I think of that when I'm snowboarding out here, and you see the people in their 70s and 80s, and they're like, they're a lot better than I am because they don't snowboard a lot, but they're so full of life and energy, and they're ready to go. And I'm like, man, I can be doing this in 50 years. Take care of myself.
That's hugely inspirational. Totally.
Yeah. I was thinking, I don't know why this thought came up, but when we were talking about the growth, I also feel like there's a healthy amount of resistance to the growth here. It's not like, I think if there was none, it would be an issue. But I think it's like, it's almost like a civil rivalry. Sometimes it's not. Like some people are like, I don't know, if you go in next door or something, some people aren't, but I just unsubscribe from all my next door emails. But like, I don't know. there's a good balance of growth and progress, but also like some checks and balances.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely has to be, because the growth isn't necessarily um coming organically from all of the people who are living here, but from, I mean, just some people are profiting a lot more from it than others, and some of those people do a good job of like um taking the community's concerns into account, and some of those people need to be nudged or outright um,
Yeah.
just have some barriers put in place. And so, yeah, I think that's good. I mean, it's just so hard to strike a balance between like wanting where you live to be vibrant and have like a healthy level of growth, but not lose what you love about it, like what makes it home. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I'm no city planner. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it seems like super hard.
Are you familiar with Montana Festival?
I am a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Patton just did an episode a couple weeks back, and it's next month. I think it's the 11th and 12th of June,
Hmm.
and they do talk about a lot of this, but they're trying to find that balance of
Yeah.
growth. And I think kind of like he said, no rate of growth is ever the right rate. It's always just too fast or too slow,
Yeah.
but it's never like, oh, this is perfect.
Yeah.
We're like
Yeah.
3% per year perfectly, and everyone's happy, and
Totally.
it's so.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. I think we've got a good balance, all things considered.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Patton's a good guy. It seems like he would have intelligent things to say about that.
Yeah, he's good. He's well spoken too, which
Yeah,
helps. But
sure.
yeah, I don't know. I went last year, and I'm going this year, and
Hmm.
I felt optimistic after it.
Yeah.
For most of the things that me and my fiance went to. So it's cool that people are doing things like that.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Totally.
Back to your food truck and your business, where it is. It's Provecho. Is that what I say? Where does that name come from?
So the LLC is called Buen Provecho.
Okay.
And so Buen Provecho is similar to Bon Appetit.
Okay.
In Spain, it's a little bit more of something that like you're having a nicer meal and the server will say Buen Provecho to you before you eat. But in Latin America, and especially in Mexico, or like in Puerto Rico, I noticed this a lot too. They'll drop the buen and just say provecho. And it's often like uh, I would have like, I would be eating next to a truck sitting on like a plastic bench, or outside of a little taqueria or something, sitting on a chair, and people walking by on the street would see that I was about to eat and say provecho.
Okay.
So it basically is a less formal bon appetit, and basically means like, I hope that you benefit from that, that it brings you health and happiness. And I really, it's really hard to come up with a name. At least it was for me. And I don't think it's like the flashiest name. I've had friends be like, you should name it something flashier, like get rid of that, get that out of there. But to me, like, one of the things that I love most about cooking for people, and one of the reasons that like I am so in love with the idea of an open kitchen, um, is that it feels like hosting a party. It feels like providing people with something that can make them happy, and also, you know, also our food is relatively healthy. Um, so you're bringing them that aspect of it, but so so basically what I'm trying to say is like, there's something about it that feels comforting and feels genuine, because the way that it was said to me by so many people, um, it was like a nicety. If you see someone about to eat, that you say it, but it felt like such a like, food is an important part of our culture, and we're going to take a second to stop. I'm walking with my family. I'm going to take a second to pause and tell you provecho when you're eating, across the way from me or whatever. I just really like that. It's a good sentiment.
See, I think it's a perfect name since I just got to hear your whole, the whole story of how you're making the tortillas and everything. So like the thought that there's that much thought into your name, it makes complete sense because there's that much thought and time into what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's one of the things that I love food culture so much that like when I see some like outward manifestation of that from people where they're like, this means a lot to us too. There's like a little bit of like a bus driver nod, I guess, to like this is also important to us. So yeah.
Someone said this to me. I mean, I've heard it many times, but someone was just saying this recently. I'm not going to even try to remember who it was because there's like 4 people, I think it was, but they were talking about their coffee and they said, oh, well, like the love is the ingredient that it needs. And that sounds so corny, but I think it's completely true because it's, it's the love that the person put into it that made it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, I would say that to what you're doing, that like kind of back to where I started at some point, like the consciousness that you're putting into that,
Mm-hmm.
that's felt and tasted and experienced, and even to the name.
Yeah.
I think if anyone heard that description of the name, they'd be like, yeah, that makes complete sense.
Totally. The problem is that you don't get to have the 5-minute conversation with everybody. Yeah. But I'm totally fine with that because I think that like, yeah, I'm just, I think it also fits my personality from the standpoint of like, I'm just not like super flashy in that way. And so it might take a second to sort of like get to know what I'm about. And I kind of feel like the name's that way too.
Yeah.
Like it kind of reflects that. And I think that, I think it's sort of a part of a general philosophy of like, this might not be the flashiest thing, but we can sort of under promise and over deliver and grow things in a more like organic way. And the slower growth might be more sustainable for what I'm looking to do.
And when you say open kitchen, that's very much like the concept at Blackbird, and it's
yes, yeah,
just open to the restaurant or to the area.
Yep. And I've worked in a handful of places with open kitchens. And I don't think I'd ever go back willingly. Yeah, I mean, it, like I said, feels a little bit like you're hosting a dinner party. I think it's really good for morale to see people enjoying the food that you're doing and not feel like you're sequestered off. Yeah, as just the help or whatever. Like I've worked with a bunch of cooks in the past who were like, I could never work in an open kitchen because like you can't even curse or whatever. And that's not true. You can't scream the F word, but if you slam your finger or get really frustrated, you can say something quietly and no one's gonna hear and it's totally fine. But it's almost more like sometimes, depending on who is saying that to me, like I could never work in an open kitchen, you almost get the feeling of like, you can't like behave yourself for 8 hours. Like it's gonna be fine. You can,
it might be good for you.
It might be good for you. Totally. Yeah, totally. Sometimes you just need to be, have a little bit of accountability.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I felt that when I'm there, and that is a very cool concept.
Mm-hmm.
With a place like Blackbird or even like your business, do they do tip share for the whole restaurant? Do you do that with your crew?
I mean, my crew isn't big enough to have like really a dedicated front of the house and back of the house.
Yep.
So yes, we do. And Blackbird does also.
Yeah.
I no longer know all the ins and outs of how they do that. So I can't speak to that, but I know that they've had like tip share between front of the house and back of the house for a long time. And, I think that sort of like, it essentially flattens out the peaks that the front of the house can make. Like you might your earning potential might be a little bit lower, but balanced by the fact that Blackbird's doing a bunch of other things to make sure that the staff is well taken care of. And also balanced by the fact that you have less turnover in the back of the house because you're able to actually offer people a better wage. And I mean, man, even I feel like when you pass McDonald's or Burger King and they're hiring now, even they're doing like $25 an hour. But like, yeah, it's just the reality of what a living wage looks like, and being able to offer people that so that you're not constantly, well, so that you can be a responsible employer, and also so that you're not constantly having to like train new people and deal with people who are like frustrated and upset. Yeah. It's like, feels like a more holistic approach.
Yeah. Because I've, with my own business, we do our park tours and our car service. And then we have like back of the house people answering the phone and doing customer service.
Sure.
And I'm like, man, like the guides and the drivers are the highest paid because they're getting gratuity on big ticket items. And I found a way to even that out, but they're, the people answering the phones, and they're the first touch point of this whole experience. And so but it's crazy. So many people in the industry, they're like, oh no, we don't do that. We don't. I'm like,
yeah,
this doesn't seem like,
well, it's tough because you do, I don't know how you do it, but it's like you do still want to balance like making sure that people who are taking on more risk or who are doing more skilled jobs or whatever, you want to obviously make sure that people are being compensated for having more skills or more investment in what you're doing. If they're spending more time, or they're just in whatever way they're like contributing more, obviously you want to reflect that, but you also want it to be equitable for everyone, so no one feels like they're getting the shaft. It's been a balance, but I've been trying to figure that out. I wouldn't have thought that you would. I wouldn't have, off the top of my head, even thought that you would have to deal with that. But that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just like the whole experience might not happen if for the people like in quote in the back of the house answering the phone.
Totally.
But yeah, then there's the people delivering it too. But it's not just that one sided. But anyway,
right.
We're figuring it out.
Yeah.
And it's we're a smaller company, but figuring out how to keep everyone happy and like, make sure they're paid.
Yeah.
Paid well enough to be able to live here.
Yeah, totally. How many employees do you have?
There's 8 on the team now.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess it was as high as 10 over the winter. We're really busy.
Do you do more with like, are you busier in the winter, or just like?
Historically, we've been busier in the winter because it's ski season. So we're taking so many people to ski around here. But we're doing Yellowstone Park tours now. So we're going to have as busy, if not busier, of a summer.
Yeah.
There's just more of a demand for that time of year.
Yeah.
It's been a balance trying to, figure out how to run a seasonal business in a very seasonal place.
Yeah, totally.
It's just, I'm sure you see that in the restaurant industry.
See it in the restaurant industry, definitely see it in the food truck industry, where it's like, obviously if we were in Portland, Oregon, or Austin, Texas, we would have a much longer, easier season. Like I know there's trucks here who run all year round, and I'm not exactly sure how they do it.
Yeah, because sometimes it really is like, is it worth opening up, for this tiny amount of sales?
Right.
Or do you spend more money just having someone be there?
Totally. And are my pipes going to blow when they freeze?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's interesting.
Is there anywhere, where could someone find you now if they wanted to? Is it the next like Music on Main or the next event going on?
Yeah, we'll be all of the Tuesday farmers markets in Bozeman through summertime.
Have they started yet or no?
No, it's mid-June those will start.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we've got BuenProvechoBZN.com, and Provecho underscore BZN is like BZN, like the uh, airport
Yep.
abbreviation, um, is our Instagram, and we post our schedule like for the week on Instagram. I need to get better about that. I hate social media, but I will do it. But I
You and me both.
yeah. um but yeah, so that's kind of the way right now. This year has been weird, um in that, we'd sort of had that limited conversation beforehand, but we are hoping to move into a brick and mortar, and there's like opportunities that we have held off on taking for the truck because we didn't want to like commit to all these different things and then have to shift gears and worry about like canceling or whatever. And so um this is definitely not that there has been a standard year yet insofar as we kind of just are getting off the ground, but yeah. um it'll just be an interesting season. So people can stay tuned on our Instagram and on our website, and we'll let people know where we're going to be at. But
Yeah, and depending on, if that does happen, and you let me know, depending on when this airs, because it's usually at least a couple of weeks. But I'm happy to update it on our social media too.
Nice.
But I'll just bring my fiance to the farmer's market so we can try some of this.
Yeah, totally.
And then what's the music on Maine? What day of the week is that? Is that a
That's
Thursday?
And shoot, I can't remember the dates for that off the top of my head. But yeah, it's like every Thursday for a relatively short stretch. It's like 6 weeks or
6 or 8 or something like that. Yeah.
So last year we did a handful of them, and this year I think we're going to do all of them. So.
And do you go to any other farmers markets on that Tuesday one or no?
No.
Yeah, that's an impressive farmers market.
It is definitely a really good opportunity for us. We've done some other farmers markets, but once again, with a relatively small staff, we kind of like, when we were starting out, we thought we were just going to like be open pretty much, 6 days a week or something like that. And it, there's sort of like a weird equilibrium of like being busy enough to justify having more staff to prep more. Yeah, getting to that stage, because right now it's like I'm doing a lot of the prep like myself.
Yeah.
And so we'll have an event and then be pretty much depleted, and then it'll take me a couple of days to get enough stuff built back up to bring the truck back out again. So yeah, it's another sort of limitation of having it be this small and this much sort of like scratch made, but it's been okay for now, and at some point we'll get over that hump.
Yeah, I know that feeling. There's these uncomfortable in betweens.
Yeah.
Like not big enough to do some things, but not small enough to like you. There's just these points where you're either on one side of the hump or the other.
Yeah.
Or you're stuck right on it.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of those little bottlenecks.
Yeah.
But I'm not used to. This is my first experience as a business owner, and so a lot of these are like new experiences to figure out.
Yeah. There's some, maybe I'll recommend some like resources for you too that I've found along the way.
Yeah.
Anything like, is there anything else you're looking for as a business owner, as far as employees or anything from the community, or anything that's other than being the uncomfortable size in the middle?
Things we're looking for from the community. No, I think that for now we're trying to find the best path of growth for us. And I think that will kind of happen organically. There's a bunch of decisions to be made in the near future to figure out some of that stuff. And I mean, the biggest thing that people can do is support the truck.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I mean, leave Google reviews.
Yeah. What's as far as the size of it, like what's the largest size, thing you've catered, and what's the smallest to where it's not even worth going out to do it?
Um, I think the smallest we've done has probably been like 30 person, something like that. Usually there's ways we can make it work. If someone has like a smaller thing, um, we will usually handle it as like a drop off. Like we drop off tortillas and the meats are heated up and it comes with salsa bar and things like that. So we've done that for like corporate lunches or small graduation parties or things like that. And then when it comes to actual catering, bring the truck. Um, that is usually more like $1,000, something like that. So whatever that works out to per person, where it becomes reasonable to them, you know, uh, so basically we're able to work with people to usually figure out something that's gonna work for them, depending on their budget and the size of the gathering. We've done some pretty large weddings, couple hundred people, something like that.
That's what I was gonna ask. If somebody said like a couple hundred.
Mm-hmm. And this summer we're gonna be cooking one of the nights for the PBR, the professional bull rider
In Big Sky?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah. And that'll be, it's like 650 people or 500. Yeah. That's going to be our biggest thing ever so far.
Are you excited or stressed?
Yes.
Both.
I'm excited. I think
Yeah.
we've got some time to figure it out. And good people helping us. So yeah, I feel like it's going to go well.
Nice.
But will require me to stay on top of planning to keep the anxiety at bay.
Very cool. But I appreciate your time, and
thank you for having me.
I'll link everything on here, and
awesome.
Come find you at the farmer's market.
Cool.
Thanks, Kenan.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.